Hi, and thank you for joining our webinar today. We're very privileged to be joined by Ian, who along with his wife Emma runs Gazegill Organics, an absolutely fantastic organic farm. It's where we source a lot of our meat from, but also our fabulous raw milk. So I want to say hi to Ian.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So today I want to talk really about the kind of preparation for Christmas, but also a little bit about the difference as to why we go organic. So I know we've ordered our fantastic organic turkeys from you for a number of years now, but I think we should probably just start with, really what is the reason why we go organic and kind of what's the difference?
Yeah. I think organic, my father-in-law coined the phrase that it's not what's in it that matters, it's what's not in it that matters. And organic farming is it's about soil health, it's about nature, it's about animal welfare, it's about clean food. And I think that is the basis of everything organic, and that means we don't routinely use any medicines, wormers, we don't routinely vaccinate anything. We've now been antibiotic free for 8.5 years in the dairy herd, which when I said to our vet we're going antibiotic free, he just said, you won't do it, it's impossible in dairy cows. And that was gauntlet down, and 8.5 years on, we're still antibiotic free. We do use the odd bit of antibiotics in young stock, in calves, because they're very susceptible, they're very delicate, at a young age. And pneumonia, is a killer, so we have to be a bit careful about using antibiotics on them. But the thing about using antibiotics is you should only use them as a life-saving medicine. They're there for life or death, and it's as simple as that. And you ask yourself the question: if I don't intervene with antibiotics, will the animal die? And if the answer is yes, then the answer is use the antibiotics. But the organic system has it's a double withdrawal period. So if there's a 7-day withdrawal period on the antibiotic medicine, then you have to double that to 14. So.
Okay. And I think outside of organic farming, antibiotics are used pretty commonly, aren't they? Even given as a preventative rather than being used as a treatment.
Yeah, well, they have, and there's a massive push in agriculture now. Even red tractor, which is probably one of the lowest standards in agriculture, is pushing for less antibiotic usage. Interestingly, I picked up a copy of Farmer and Stock Breeder, 1952, which was an annual little book that came out. And antibiotics were relatively new, at that time. And it even said in there, antibiotics are not, a way of actually excusing poor husbandry. They're there as a life-saving tool. So we lost so much by the overuse of antibiotics.
We said it's a bit of we also saw that in some of the recent studies that if we talk about methane and gases and emissions, using antibiotics in your cows increases their methane content and actually causes a problem.
Yes, it does. And the interesting thing about again, organically farming a cow is we tend to use hay and haylage rather than the more intense silage. The problem with silage grass is a farm will crop 4, maybe 5 times a year, and in between each cropping, to get the grass to grow, it'll put on huge amounts of ammonium nitrate and huge amounts of slurry, which is liquid cow excrement, urine, silage effluent. So as the grass pickles in its own juices, the juices leach out, and it's really acrid. You see these slurry tankers going around, and all you see behind them are crows, jackdaws, and seagulls picking up the worms that are coming to the surface of the soil, because the stuff is so acrid, it's burning them. And of course, all your natural nitrogen-fixing plants, your peas, your vetches, your clovers, all those pea family, that automatically, as the leaves bruise, release nitrogen through nodules on their roots. They can't actually live in that environment. So you kill off all your good plants and you end up with species poor grassland. So organic farming tends to use hay and haylage, and yes, you don't get the yields out of it, but then we shouldn't be pushing cows. I mean, our cows have a longer lactation than your average cow. We tend to run them for about sort of 16 to 18 months, whereas most lactations are 9 months, very strictly managed. The cow will have to have a calf every 11 months, whereas we're very sort of relaxed. The cow will hold to the ball when she holds to the ball, and she will dry when you dry off when she wants to dry off. And with a little bit of tweaking and careful management, it's a really nice way of doing it, because you're not pushing the animal. I mean, ours will yield in that 15-16 months 4,500 litres of milk per animal. A high yielding Holstein that's 9 months lactation, pushed, full of protein, fed lots of silage grass and lots of sugars and all the things a cow shouldn't eat. They're like children. They love sweets, but
Yeah.
they
Shouldn't feed them.
eat them. Will produce up to 12,000 litres in that one lactation. But the difference is some of our girls are, well, they're geriatric. Some of them are into their very late teens, and I think the oldest cow we had was 23.
That shows they live their lifespan with you, which is good.
Yeah, a cow will naturally live to sort of early 20s if you let it, and if you allow it to behave in a natural way, and not fill it full of proteins, not fill it full of medicines, and not milk it too hard.
And that probably affects the composition of the milk, doesn't it? It makes the milk.
Does it change? I mean, if you feed a cow a lot of sugar, I mean, I'm assuming the sugar in the milk goes up.
Yes. Yeah, well, basically, yes, you change the lactose in the milk, but more importantly, you get the cow to produce an unnatural amount of milk. So your butterfat starts dropping. All the things you want in the milk, you start to lose because you're feeding it a very unnatural diet. We call it white water. So these cows produce white water. And the other downside of this very intensive sort of aspect of dairying is 4 lactations and the cow is fit for nothing. That's it. It's end of its working life at 6, and that we can't subscribe to putting an animal through the stress of perpetual pregnancy, which is not good for anybody in any species, and pushing it full of protein to make it produce more milk. Plus, the protein creates it burps and it does other things, and that's where we have the greenhouse gases and the issue there.
But you also get more omega-3 in the milk, don't you? You get more omega-3 in a grass-fed cow.
In grass-fed cows, any ruminant that's on grass, the omega-3s are naturally higher. We had a very interesting conversation with Trading Standards, who said, well, you can't really put that on the label because you've got to be able to prove it. So we did some quite extensive testing, and we could prove there were slightly higher levels in it. It's not massive, but it is slightly higher. Which she relented and allowed us to put that back on the label, which is great. But
you get other nutrients in there, like conjugated linoleic acid, and you get vitamin D. You get lots of things that are much better for you, and that balance is significantally better in organic milk and raw milk. Really,
I mean, raw milk in particular, because raw milk's got everything in within the milk that you would need to survive on. It wouldn't be the best, most healthiest of diets, but everything's in there. And the thing about when you heat treat milk and pasteurize it, you denature the enzymes, and the enzymes are the vehicle to help us absorb the calcium and help us to absorb all the goodness from the milk. You lose those because you've denatured the enzymes. The enzymes can't now do their job as as vehicle to get stuff into our bodies. And it's interesting. The other processed milk goes through a lot of milk on the supermarket shelf is homogenization, which is the process of breaking the fat particles. Now we know the issue with trans fats and broken fat particles are just as bad as trans fats. We've evolved over thousands and thousands of years eating whole fats. Our bodies struggle to recognize what a trans fat is. So our lipase and all our enzymes struggle to deal with it, and then we have issues of
dairy intolerance that goes up.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's it's
because we find a lot of people, us included, tolerate raw milk, but we struggle to tolerate pasteurized, homogenized milk. But if we drink raw milk, we have so much less of a problem. And we make kefir, kefir with and we find it so much better when we make it with the raw milk than otherwise. We have a much improved product.
It feeds the grains. The grains actually live better, on a product that's natural and raw. It's interesting because a lot of things, with raw milk, there's always the worry that it's got to be clean, it's got to be well handled, and as long as you follow the basic hygiene principles in the parlour and in the bottling plant, we do a lot of pathogen testing, only to build a picture. It's almost I wouldn't say pointless. It builds us a picture over a period of months, rather than we can't test for a pathogen before we send the milk out, because the testing takes up to 10 days. So by the time you've grown anything on a an agar plate,
it's gone.
The milk's gone. It's gone off, or it's been sold. But
it's incredibly safe, isn't it? Because a huge number of people in the UK drink it every day, us included. And I think the actual incidence of any problem from it is minuscule and historical in a lot of cases.
we've got a really good gold standard now. We've got the Raw Milk Producers Association, which it's accredited, and to be a member, you have to do. We do 3 weekly pathogen testing. We do a lot of bacteriology, and you have to follow certain sort of rules to say, we will agree to this standard, and that makes a product safer as well. When you think of raw milk, potentially it's a product that could be a disaster. But think of sushi. We don't have this issue with sushi because they are following some really crystal clear, good guidelines and good rules.
So I think we find that particularly with raw milk, I think the standards are much higher than with normal milk. If you look with milk that's pasteurized and homogenized, they don't have to be as clean. So I think we actually trust it more in a lot of ways.
We used to have a tanker driver that came here that would tell stories of some of the farms he went to. He said that there were stalactites on the inside of the milk tank of awful stuff, and because it's being pasteurized, they rely on the fact that it doesn't really matter what you do with it. Now the industry has improved. It's improved a lot because the quality of the milk before it's pasteurized will affect the pasteurized products. So the industry has sort of pushed farms to increase hygiene standards, and we have a test that's called Bactiscan. Now your average farm will run a Bactiscan of around 40, so that's a hygiene indicator that's reasonably clean. We're averaging 6 at the minute, which says every single teat and every single cow is prepared properly, the plant's clean, and that that if we start creeping up to 10, we start to ask ourselves the questions, why is that just sort of spiked slightly? Because hygiene indicators are great indicators of you haven't, if it's very clean milk, you haven't got the potential for pathogens to be in there, and that's a a good rule. But it's a great product as raw milk.
I mean, I'm assuming, I know that Gazegill sells an awful lot of things other than just the milk. I mean, what are your best sellers? I'm assuming the milk must be quite high up.
Yeah, well, I've just brought them up on this other screen, and for the first time in a while, ox liver has just overtaken raw milk. Now, that's probably because raw milk's a bit seasonal, and it's gone colder, so the cows are producing a bit less, and we're at that sort of time of the year where butter fat goes through the roof, and the proteins drop. But I'll come back to that in a minute. But so ox liver at the minute is top seller, followed by raw milk, followed by.
And what do you think makes liver a food that people should eat? What do you think? What's good in liver?
Apart from the fact, I love liver. I grew up on liver, but it's a nutrient dense, really, really good meat. And they do say, you need to eat organ meats for your organs. So you eat heart for your heart, eat liver for your liver. It's
one of those things that I think actually is very true. There's some evidence for it as well, particularly with I think there's some good evidence for it.
We've developed some products. People were asking us how can I get the children to eat liver, and that's a difficult thing. Liver or kidney or anything that's strong tasting. So we've developed mince, which is 20% offal and 80% beef mince, so that you can sort of hide it in the lasagna, and you can't taste. You haven't got that strong iron taste of the liver. You haven't got the kidney taste. Personally, I enjoy all those, and stuffed lamb sart's probably one of my favorites.
If you're used to them, but getting a child to eat them sometimes be tricky.
Yes. So it's a great little product. We do an offal sausage, which is about 20% offal in that. It just helps sort of
make it more palatable for people when they're trying it for the first time, maybe.
Yeah, because some of the flavors of offal are strong. They're quite strong flavors. So
And I think if you look at liver, there's arguments that there's as many multivitamins and minerals in the liver as there is in many. It can't, and no vegetable can beat it. Even though we talk about plant foods all the time, we forget about how impressive organ meats are.
Yeah, organ meats are really, really so good for us. I think the evidence is there that it's one of our best sellers, and it flies out. It's constantly up there. Kidneys would be there as well, but when you look at the ratio of liver to the small amount of kidney you get in an animal, kidney sells, but we're constantly selling out of it because it's a product that is in smaller amounts in the animal as such.
Yeah, it's true. But I think it also goes with the idea of eating all of the animal if you can. Eating all the different pieces from it is really, really helpful. And I think it's more sustainable than as just having these small cuts of meat that we like. Having, eating.
Nose to tail eating.
Yeah, it is that no
smellies.
stimulating. And I think, carnivore diet and other things have started to show us the importance of that. There's a lot of promotion going on at the moment, but it has a lot of health benefits for us to eat those other tissues, to get the proteins, to get the collagen, to get the amino acids.
We've seen a massive shift over the years in terms of meats. That the bigger sellers are things like shin. They've got the connective tissue in them. The slow cook. As long as you cook it slowly, cook it well, you render all that, all the gelatin out of that cut. Marrow bones. We just sell so many marrow bones and bone broth, and
you can make stocks. Yeah, fantastic stocks out of them.
But again, it's yes. When you look at the price of an organic chicken to put on your table, it's certainly up there. But I do believe it actually makes people cook again. So we always would cook a chicken. We'll have a Sunday roast. We'll then have a chicken and leek pie the next day. And then the carcass and everything gets boiled down. It's either a soup or a stock. But when you actually portion it down, it's 35 pence a portion. You've got all
so it seems expensive, but it isn't at all, because by the time you've worked out how many meals you've done, it's amazing. And that's how we think. When you want to cook organic, if you think it's more expensive, then you just learn to cook meats cuts that are cheaper, and you learn to bulk make when you bake things. When you make stuff, you make up things to freeze as well. You make up larger portions. It's what we do.
And again, who says an 8-ounce portion of meat, 200 grams is what we should be eating? Maybe 5 ounces more than enough. The other thing with an animal that's slower grown is the meat will be slightly more dense, so there will be a bit more to it. So it becomes a bit more filling as such. And again, our customers are very, very clever at sort of stretching, different meats, and diced beef is it's an absolutely fantastic. Some of the diced steak we do, and the stories you get back from the customers, the range of recipes they make with it. And again, they're not using a 400 gram pack to feed 2 people. They're feeding 4 people with that. You can bulk it up. You learn to sort of add things, and
And we were saying before how much we love your hamburgers, and we love some of the meat. You can really taste the difference, I think. And I think that makes it worth making the meat the celebrity on your plate. Making that not eating huge amounts of it, but eating good quality meat instead.
It's everything that you do from day one with an animal. It's how it's reared. Everything. Like I say, we don't farm cows, we don't farm pigs, we don't farm sheep, we don't farm land. We farm soil, and we're soil farmers. And as long as we look after the soil, everything else will drop into place. You've got to have some good husbandry for animals, and you've got to have sort of all those things in place. But soil is key. Soil is our absolute. It's our backbone. We owe our very existence to the top 6 inches of the planet's crust, and the fact that it rains.
And we're actually losing soil, aren't we? We're losing soil quality all the time. It's something that we don't talk about a lot.
I was reading not so long back, actually, that soil build-up or soil growth of a human hair, a year. You start ploughing that, and you get a heavy bit of rain. I've just watched this last back end. My neighbours plough 36, 38 acres up there, and it's gone down the river today. I've watched it all disappear. So that's all in Blackpool now, creating a diffuse pollution problem. But the soil,
the quality's poor. It won't stay.
No, and
it's why it floods as well, I suppose, isn't it? Because it doesn't have those roots, it doesn't have those structure for the plants, it doesn't have that same ability. So we get those flooding problems because of it.
We're sat on a blue seam of Neolithic boulder clay, so we can grow grass in the best of droughts. But in the wettest of conditions, I can walk down our front meadow. Even today, I've walked down there. It's firm underfoot because we put plenty of organic matter back in. We don't put any slurry on there. We don't put anything. All these other inputs, these artificial inputs, the ammonium nitrate, that ends up washing them into the river and causing.
That's the fertilizer, isn't it?
Yes, and causing great problems. Another things that they use sewage sludge, which is the last bit of these sewage plants' filter beds that won't now rot down anymore, but it's full of nutrients, but it's also full of metals, lead, zinc, cadmium. You've got farmers also saying that they can't get cows in calf. And when you think of all the estrogen that's in the sewage farm and in the beds, there's no wonder you feed cows grass. It's a vicious cycle. So,
and that's going into all our food.
Yes. So good organic matter, good well-rotted bedding muck compost. That's great. Plenty of organic matter going back in. So I can walk down that meadow I've been down there today because the restaurant we're building is down that way. And I can walk up the opposite side of the river on my neighbour's meadow, and it's like a sponge. It's as if I'm walking on grass with no soil beneath it. It's just root structure. Because all it gets is slurry and ammonium nitrate, 4 or 5 cuts a year, 4 or 5 applications a year. It doesn't get grazed, so there's no natural sort of poaching going on where we're pushing seeds back in. Because it's cut so early, it's species poor. There's probably 5 or 6 species
of diversity's gone
in there. You know, our bottom meadow is now 84 species of plants.
And that's what your cows are eating. And look at what the nutrient content that will be that they're getting.
Herb rich, really good. You know, we've got some rare plants down there, some orchids and things like that, which is great because if you look at every plant, it'll have a particular bug that relies on that plant and thrives on that plant. And that bug will then have a raptor, and that raptor will have another raptor, and you've suddenly built a food chain. You take away the plant, and you've taken away the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think you look at all the diversity and the species biodiversity that exists on your farm will just be so different than what's existing on your neighbour's farm.
How about seasonally?
It is.
I'm assuming seasonally you must eat, I don't know, we were saying earlier, but to do with like lambs. I mean, surely because you're kind of looking at your soil and your land and also what they're eating, you must be looking at like the length of kind of time they live for, but also it's when you kind of harvest them. I mean, there must be differences in all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And every animal, you can't batch finish animals. You know, a lot of farms operate a batch finish system where they say these 100 lambs will be ready on this day. Every living species, you know, every living creature is different and will grow at a different rate. And some may ail a bit, some may, you know, not get the best start, may not have got the colostrum from the ewe at the beginning, or not enough of it. And so we work on spring lamb, 2.5 month old, barely 30 odd kilos in weight, 34 kilos in weight, pale in colour and bland in taste. You know, get it to 11.5 months, get it to hog it, and there's a lot more fat on there. There's a lot more density to the meat, and it's a darker colour.
Quality fats in there, healthy fats in there that you're getting that are very different.
All that extra grass it's eaten over the 12 months rather than 2.5 months of
plus that animals had a better quality life, a healthier life. And I think probably they have less stress hormones circulating, which you're also getting through your meat.
Well, we'll have lambs that end up as hogs because they perhaps haven't grown as well, so you just tend to take them on. If it takes, I've always said, if it takes 14, 16 months to finish a lamb, then it's going to taste fantastic when it is finished, but don't push it. I see people all winter going around feeding concentrate feeds, molasses feeds to lambs to get them in condition and keep them in condition over winter. You just need to take your foot off the gas and let the lambs do. See what they turn out like.
Yeah. How does that translate to turkeys? Sorry, how does that translate? Yeah, because I know we, like I said, we've always got our turkeys from you, but I'm not really sure how long a turkey survives for.
Your average sort of faster growing stuff, and again, batch finished turkeys will be again put down in sort of late June, early July, so that's when they hatch. Organic tend to hatch, by May. Most of the hatching's done, so you've got that slow growth again. What they're not. I mean, poultry diets are super complex. Amino acids and everything have to be absolutely spot on to get the animal to be healthy and grow well. But the other thing an animal needs is not just a complex feed; it's ranging. It's outside. That those turkeys need, and poultry needs to go and scrap, and it needs to eat grubs, and it needs to pick up insects and eat grass. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, geese. You can rear geese on grass alone. Just take longer. That's the great grazers. They say a lamb can starve a cow, a horse can starve a lamb, and a geese can starve the lot of them. So because it grazes the grass.
How about like a hanging time? So I'm assuming you must hang meats for different lengths of time.
Yeah.
Your turkeys?
Turkeys are hung in feather for about a week, and that sort of sets the fat and allows a bit of flavour to develop. You don't want a turkey that's gamey, and I hear people hanging them for 3-4 weeks in feather, and that's it's like hanging a pheasant till it's gone green. No thanks. So a week, about right. It allows the fat to set under the skin, and again, it just matures that meat a bit more. Beef, again, it depends on the part of the beef. The forequarter tends to be sort of 3 to 4 weeks before you really need to start getting it off the bone. Whereas what we call loin and bone and hind, so a loin and bone is fillet, sirloin on the outside and rump on the end of it, and that comes off the what we call the top side of the leg, or the buttock. And buttock and loin and bone, 6-8 weeks, and you're getting some really good a bit of trim to come off it, because it really blackens on the outside. But the breaking down of that meat and it just becomes so much more tender.
So I think it's the skill of the butchery and the skill of how you prepare your meat as well that adds to that flavour. And I think, tell us about your plans that you've got for your farm. We've seen it expand dramatically from when we first bought raw milk from you. We've seen it change quite a lot during that time and get bigger.
It's been a very interesting journey, and we also will do the farm shop and the online shop, and we'll stop there. And as always,
we'll put all those details up for you, because they're fantastic.
we get really bored easily. So I know we're just building, hopefully open by May, an off-grid restaurant. So it's a green oak octagon with glass walls, and it's going to be completely off-grid. So solar battery charged, wood-fired oven, tandoor oven, char grill. So that will really shape the menu. Great. So I love tapas-style food in terms of, if you put a massive plate of pasta in front of me, I get bored after 3 mouthfuls. Whereas if you put 20 little plates in front of me, I'll pick
all different.
So share boards, marinated meats in the tandoor oven, fresh rotis, salads, nice sauces, good steaks, good burgers, all on the char grill. So it really shaped the menu. And like I say, that's going to be off grid, and that sits at the top of what's our worst meadow on the farm. It was a meadow that was ploughed for the Dig for Victory campaign, and it really did ruin it. If I put that in context, in the sort of 70 odd years since that was ploughed, it's taken all that time to get about 30 species of plant back in it, whereas it used to have over 80.
So it shows you how that over farming takes a long time to recover from, doesn't it?
200 years to establish a good meadow and let it establish properly. So we've stolen the top acre, and we're actually going to rewild the rest of that meadow. So there's woodland going in, there's a 2-acre wetland going in, some rough grassland, and the idea is really, there's a great walk around it as well. So whilst you're waiting for your lunch, or if you've eaten too much, you can go and walk lunch off, and have lots of interpretation as to why we need dragonflies and why they encourage amphibians in, and what the amphibians do for us. And it's all part of a very complex ecosystem. So get the message across that all these different habitats are here on farms if we allow them to be. And I think that's the difference between organic and not organic. In a lot of cases, there's some really good non-organic farming out there, some great regenerative stuff going on, but there's also some horrendous farming to every last inch of grass, and that's not where we need to be, because land is like anything else. You get out what you put in, and if you try and take more out than you put in, it's not going to work. Well, not for very long anyway. Here we go. I mean, the report came out saying we've got probably 60 good harvests left in UK soils. Well, if you look at it more realistically, it's probably nearer 150, but it does go back.
It's going to impact our children. It's going to impact their children, definitely. And it's going to make a massive difference. And I think we use it up with the poor farming, but we can change it, can't we? I think what you've shown us is that you can really change that if you farm in the right way.
Consumers can change how agriculture acts. If you want to go and buy really cheap Southstall bacon, stick to the Danish rubbish. The welfare standards are pitifully poor. So it's important. I mean, we don't inherit time here from our parents. We borrow it from our children. And if you approach every day with that in mind, look after it, look after the land, and what we're trying to do here is pass it on. I mean, Emma's family has been here for just short of 500 years, and every generation has passed it to the next and said, do not mess those meadows up. Look after those meadows, look after your nature, look after your birds. The only reason the curlew is back on the red list is because of loss of habitat through intensive farming practices. And the curlew is a fantastic. I think the UK is responsible for 75% of all breeding curlews on the planet, and it's on the red endangered list. So
it's such an important job that you're doing. And I think we've seen that all the way through when we watched you. And it's such a huge pleasure to talk to you about it, because I think we've also seen that you've wanted to teach schools, you've taught other people, you want to inform everybody, and you're really happy to share that knowledge. And it's really lovely to watch. But also the products that you produce are fantastic. You know, we have bought your meat for a long term. We've bought your milk long term.
Yes.
And we've only ever seen benefit from having it. And also it tastes fantastic. So we're so looking forward to seeing a restaurant, and we're definitely coming to visit.
That's the last bit. That's the last bit. We get it on the plate on the farm, because straight out of the ground onto a plate.
And no miles of travel at all. So you've actually cut your food miles down. That's brilliant.
It's also the fact that we love the organic, we love the sustainability, and that's really what ADIO stands for as well. And it is the health benefits from getting that, really. So thank you very much for talking to us, Ian.
We apologise for the puppies. We have puppies at the moment who are causing a slight havoc, and we apologise for having to the slight disruption there.
And we'll have to get you down on the farm and maybe do a blog from the farm.
We'd love to do that. Do a milk run as well. Would be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be.
So thank you very much. All of our
we'd love to come watch in the milk parlour. Definitely.
All of our webinars are available at all times on ADIO. And thank you very much for joining us again, Ian.
Yeah.
Thank you.